It is July 28th. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you know what it really means that after weeks of hype, we finally have our first clues on whether or not we are really, truly in a recession. And the answer might surprise you. And we're going to talk about how it's going to impact you. And we're going to also talk about, what you can do to not only survive but thrive through whatever it is economics or economics economists are saying, right? So just so you know, typically folks say like because I don't want to say economists again and say it wrong. Oh, I got it. Okay.
You got it.
Economists call a recession. It's called a recession when the GDP, which is the gross, oh my gosh, gross
domestic
product. I'm sorry.
I got you.
Girl,
I'm like, if we don't know, I'm going to Google real quick. We got this.
Declined for 2 consecutive quarters. That means 6 months in a row. So the GDP really is like goods and services, right? And so for a country. And so we just found out that, yes, that has happened. And we just completed the second quarter of the year as of today. So right on cue, the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis released their advanced estimate of economic growth this morning. And Mandy's going to tell you what's the deal. What do they say? So we can gird your loins. Okay.
Yes. Gird your loins. I never understood why it was pronounced gird. Anyway, yeah. So here's what's happening, y'all. A second straight corner. The U.S. economy did shrink again by 0.9%. That's never a great thing. It's less than the last quarter's, decline, but still it's a second quarter of straight decline. So it's bad news bears for the U.S. economy. A big part of that, of course, has been the fact that consumer spending has been slowing down. Investments in business and the investments that businesses are making have been slowing down. It's not all bad news, though. And like this picture of what's going on in the economy is super complex. And the way that it's affecting you guys at home and even us, in my basement and Tiffany, in her beautiful office, it's all affecting us a little bit different. So I think we should have like an open conversation. I welcome you guys to ask your questions about, what is concerning you, whether it's like financially or professionally about the recession that we're in. Carla asks, what does this mean for job security? Do you think there will be layoffs? Yeah. There already have been several, big companies. There's smaller companies that are making layoffs too. I mean, we've seen companies like Twitter, Redfin, which is a big realtor, like home buying, company. Shopify just this week. I have a friend at Shopify and he said that there was 10% cuts at Shopify, so yes, layoffs are happening. I think this is to be expected. One of the key indicators for GDP, which we're seeing declining, is the investments that businesses are making. And I think one of the biggest investments businesses do make is people. So labor. And it's often like we're expensive. Salaries are expensive. So you do see companies when they're trying to save, potentially have layoffs. What I'm hearing, as I do career coaching, and what I'm hearing from clients is I was in the interview process for such and such, and I've been told that it's on pause for a while, and I think maybe instead of like layoffs, what you may be encountering is like those hiring freezes or hiring pauses where companies are just like, let's just chill, let's just not say yes to new headcount or, new hires until we see how things shake out. But I think if you're someone who you're working now and you're concerned, I think it's really industry specific. Have you noticed, Tiff, like a lot of recruiters have been getting laid off? And
I didn't notice.
Yeah. There's some, I think at Twitter, for example, it was only the first wave of layoffs were recruiters, were like from the talent acquisition part, which like makes sense when you think about it, right? Because I mean, if they're slowing down hiring, do you need as many recruiters? And I think if you're, and other jobs, by the way, I still have clients who are getting jobs at places like Google, Amazon, job offers this week. So there's still lots of jobs to be had, but I think it's really like, what is the skill set? Yeah, the type. And I think it's a good reminder of the importance of always investing in your skills and and how you can develop yourself so that you are one of those people that it's harder for companies to lose.
Illustrating that Oprah.
Illustrate your Oprah for sure. And even thinking like, okay, maybe instead of like sometimes at companies, they may try to reassign you to another team. So what other skills do you have? What other team could you see yourself fitting into? But yeah, I can understand why folks are a little concerned because layoffs, They're not like at crazy highs. But it is happening out there.
Jessica asks, when will we start to see the impact? Later this year or mostly next year? Good question, Jessica. So we're already seeing the impact now. So I did see a quick question about, are we in a recession? The answer is, yo no say, meaning I don't know, right? So we are in a recession-ish. So by technical definition of 2 consecutive quarters of economic downturn, GDP going down, yes, we have hit that. So the GDP, they officially announced it's 6 months straight we've had of economic downturn. Okay, like a contraction in the economy. So less versus more. But we also have growth in other areas that typically would also indicate a recession. So it's like we down bad here, we up cute here. So they're like, so to answer your question, Jessica, like when we start to see the impact, you're seeing it now, right? Like one, because high inflation rates are one of the recession indicators, and we're seeing that things cost more. I know the last time you went to the grocery store, you were like, oh, hell no, right? Nuts. The market is all over the place, well, she's down. I mean, like, it's like I tell people, don't look at your 401k, leave that thing alone, because that thing is banging right now. So you're seeing that there as well. You might be seeing it, like I mentioned earlier, some retailers are slashing prices because they have to get rid of inventory and get an influx of cash because people are not buying past the necessities. So they're not buying the TV. So people are sticking to groceries as they ought to, but groceries also have a low profit margin, meaning that they don't make a lot of money off groceries. So when you go to Target and you're like we are all to do, and you buy your groceries, Target is giving you groceries at like a discount because they know you're going to mosey on over to other things.
I have to avoid the home goods section.
Oh, yes.
I can't go over there.
Home goods, also like electronics, those are high margin items, meaning they could sell them at multiples. So you buy it for $1, they buy it for $1, they sell it to you for $2. And so, but people are not doing that. They're sticking just to groceries. So that's also an indicator, meaning that like you're going to see the impact now. And you will continue to see the impact. And if we enter into a like fully recognized recession, you will continue to see the impact during the recession and after the recession. And so, I hope that answers your question, Jessica. They're like, yes, we're in the impact now, whether they call it recession or not. We're feeling the impact now.
Ashanti says, I'm currently unemployed due to my job ending and I'm looking for better opportunities. Would the possibility of a recession affect my abilities to negotiate for more money? So here's some good news, Ashanti. Actually, wages are still up. So wages have increased somewhere between like 4 and 5% this year. And labor demand is really strong. I mean, I love this. Can I post a link? Anyway, there's something called the Hiring Lab. And it is a study and research that Indeed.com, which is like one of the biggest job posting sites. You guys know about Indeed. They have been tracking job openings since the pandemic. Job openings are still up over 50% compared to the beginning of the pandemic. So wages are up, demand for employees, demand for labor is still strong. So if you're in the job market, it could actually be a great time for you to negotiate for more. And I wouldn't want anyone to think I should accept less or let me like lowball myself because I want to have a good chance at getting a job. Try to resist that. But that being said, think about the field that you're in and is the demand up? Especially for your skill set. Don't know what field you're in particularly, but you may have a bit of a easier time negotiating more pay if you're in like a high demand field versus like we were talking about earlier about people in recruiting or the talent acquisition field, maybe a little bit trickier. But there's still reasons to be optimistic about your job search for sure.
Tamika has a question. Tamika, will inflation ever go back down? Meek. That's why I call
Let me get my
Tamika.
crystal ball. Hold on. Where did I put it? It's around here somewhere.
Well, here's what I'll say. Although we don't have a crystal ball, typically the United States has a stable inflation rate of about 1 to 3%, which we have maintained for many, many, many years. This inflation rate of like what? We're over 9% now.
8.6 is cray-cray.
Yes. It's not our typical. So, of course, there's no way for us to know. But if we're going to look at history, that we can postulate that inflation hopefully will return to to a like our normal inflation rate of 1 to 3%. I mean, because we cannot continue to maintain at this inflation rate. This is why, honestly, why you see the Feds raising rates, because when things whenever there is an issue with the economy, they don't have too many tools to navigate. They can give away money. They can offer aid to say you don't have to pay for things, but they can also like restrict access to credit. And they do this by raising rates, right? They're like, hey, you know, what you're going to pay for your interest rate that you're going to pay for a house or a car is going to eliminate some people from being able to afford a house or a car. These are the tools that the Feds have and the federal government has at their disposal. So I say all that to say that they use these tools to hope to stabilize the economy. So I would hope that they would bring the inflation rate back down, or else we're in big trouble. And if we look at history, history tells us that like they should be able to do so.
Well, let's talk about one of the biggest drivers of inflation too, which has been the fact that like there has been increased demand for stuff, but because of the pandemic, like we're still in this period where companies can't create the stuff as fast as they used to or to meet that demand. So like it's classic. Even me with my B in econ, I can tell you that when supply decreases and you got more people wanting stuff, then, you know, that can lead to some inflation. So hopefully once, you know, companies get a handle on their supply chains and we're able to like level things out, we may see that come back to a little bit of normalcy. But I feel like one of the biggest things, you mentioned the Fed rate hike, and I want to go to Jessica Rogers' question. She asks, what could this mean for home buying? And this increase in Fed rates directly, it doesn't actually, it's like a myth that when the Fed increases rates, that mortgage rates fall in step with that. But because the Fed rate impacts other parts of the system, it typically like indirectly impacts mortgage rates. So rates are getting more expensive. And we have seen, like I was just reading this article that said that, you know, because people are facing higher mortgage costs, like the fact that you could get like a 2% interest rate during the pandemic, and now it's like what, 4 or 5%, it's getting really expensive. Plus there's just not a lot of homes out there. Homes were already like cray high. So it's actually Americans are canceling their deals to purchase homes at the highest rate since the start of the pandemic. And I think that must be because they're like sticker shock, one thing. And then it's like, maybe wait for rates to come back down, because obviously mortgage rates can go up and down. So like if you're not pressed right now to buy a home, you may want to wait. You know, it may be the best thing for you financially to just like let things simmer down. But yeah, I mean, Tiff, didn't you tell a story about someone who like missed out or couldn't afford a house?
Well, it was around the corner from where I lived. There was a woman who she had locked in a rate at like 3 point whatever percent. You know, she was great. Her real estate agent dropped the ball. And, you know, you can only hold a rate typically for like 30 days and you can get an extension. And so they failed to file or whatever, do whatever, so she can get her extension. So the house that she wanted to get, she couldn't afford it with the new interest rate. So it's not a housing cost. That what you're going to pay monthly on a house is the cost of the house, but also the cost to borrow money to purchase that house. So if you're buying a house cash, whoop, whoop, you don't got to worry about interest rates. But if you are financing, it's going to factor into what your monthly amount is. I actually had to have a come to Jesus talk with my brother-in-law this morning, because, you know, he's buying my late husband, Jarrell, our second property. He's purchasing it. And then I'm going to take that money and set it aside for my bonus daughter, Alyssa, to add to her, you know, her legacy, the legacy her father left her. But I told him, I'm like, bruh, don't drag your feet. I said, because you might price yourself out from that house. Thankfully, he's going through a program called NACA, which helps to, I think the interest rate that they're offering him is 3.5%, which is great. So they're locking that in for him. But I'm like, make sure that you are doing everything they ask, because, you know, I'm in Jersey, so housing prices are still increasing, not as dramatically as before, but with interest rates increasing, I don't know what NACA is going to do. You know, they have their own program about keeping interest rates low. But I said, if these things creep up, you might not be able to afford the very same house you could afford 6 months ago. So I put a little fear of God in him, but hopefully that puts a little fear of God in you too. So yeah, so and with housing, I mean, there's no way. I mean, everyone's claiming like it's not going to be as bad as the 2008 crash, or there might be not a crash at all. I don't know that you should be holding your breath for crash or not crash. It's if you want to purchase a house, take your time to do so smart and keep your debt to income ratio low with lower debt payments by paying off your debt, keep your credit score decent, maintain income coming in. If you do those things, there are deals to be had in every market. And if you're patient, you can find them. Shiro, da, 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 da. No, is that He-Man? I don't remember. One of those, He-Man was the whatever the initial like character from Hanna-Barbera, I think, whatever. And then Shiro was like the girl's version. But I love me some Shiro. So Shiro Bailey.
Shiro.
How do we prepare? Honestly, great question. So one of the things I tell people, and I've been saying this for a long time, you got to drop down and get your noodle on, girl. Drop down and get your noodle on. So what is that? You have to know today, if you don't do nothing else today, calculate your noodle budget. That is your ramen noodle budget. Think about back in college, you used to eat them nasty ramen noodles. I'm not talking about the delicious ones from like the authentic Asian restaurant. I'm talking about the plastic ones from the 25-cent pack. So, your noodle budget really is if I had to eat ramen noodles, if I had to get rid of the excess and only take care of the necessities, what would my budget be? So maybe your life costs you $4,000 a month. You get your hair done every once in a while, nails a little bit, go out with the girls. But if you were to cut out those luxuries and just got down to the necessities, right? The health and safety things that you must have, what would your life cost you? Maybe you could save $600 a month, and instead of $4,000, it costs you $3,400. You don't have to live at your noodle budget, but you need to know what it is in case you hit a financial roadblock. You lose your job, things get too expensive, like the things you need get too expensive. You know what your noodle budget is, and you can drop down to it. Because if you don't, so many people end up losing their job and they lose their house and their cable is still on. I am people. That was me. Where I still had these like expenses that were draining me, even though I had just lost my job. And so if I would have dropped down and got my noodle on, I would have had excess money to live a little longer at my current space. And then also excess money to possibly put out for savings. So first things first is like, cut back expenses if you can, save as much as you can, because that's what's going to see you through. Reduce your debt payments. If you're able, definitely call your service providers if you're experiencing hardship. Like so many of them, especially now after the pandemic, they have hardship departments that can help you.
Can we talk about like reducing your debt payments for a minute? Because I was talking to one of my Mandi moneymakers, and she was just saying like, because of interest rates rising, like credit card debt is getting more expensive, right? So if you're carrying credit card debt, like there's things you can do to consolidate. So in her example, she did a balance transfer. So if you've got lingering consumer debt, I feel like let's talk about some ways you can like actually tackle that to reduce your debt. So like balance transfer, you can do a debt consolidation loan. So if you go to like a credit union and get a personal loan and then you use that to pay off your credit card debt, but actually like make a plan for it because it's only going to get more expensive. And the beauty of those personal loans, they come with a fixed interest rate.
Yeah.
So it does not change, unlike your credit card debt, which is like all over the place.
Yeah, that's great. And you're right. I meant Shira, not Shiro. My bad. Y'all got me. I was like Shira. I'm like, I
swear I saw Shiro. Did I read that wrong too?
Her name is Shiro, but I called her Shira, which it was the opposite to He-Man, Shira. Oh, either way, you knew what I was talking about.
Thanks, Poison Ivy.
Yes.
Cynthia says, I am in real estate law. If interest rates continue to climb, I'm concerned that this will impact my job. Do you think foreclosures will rise like they did in 2008? Very good question.
Yeah. Well, can I just say that the repo man has been coming for y'all's cars? The
cars?
Yeah. There's been a huge uptick, Mandi, in car repossessions, which is one of the key indicators for a recession. Huge uptick on car repossessions. So of course, cars are not the same as homes, because obviously, like, you don't have a car and you can't get around, but you don't have a home, and where do you live? But I would just say that, like, I don't know if what that means for foreclosures, but I do know when people have hard financial times, they can't afford their financial obligations, and they're not quick to say, I'm not paying for my home. So what you usually see is this. If you remember during the 2009, 10, 8 recession, right, that the home market, we didn't see the crash until years later. It's a delayed response because it takes people a while. They're like, well, I'm not going to pay my cable bill. I'm not going to pay, my cell phone. Oh, I'm not going to pay my car. I'm not going to. So it's usually what you see is a ripple and the homes come later. So if it's going to happen where we see this increase in like foreclosures, I don't think it's going to be like this instant, that instead that it will be a ripple of all of these other economic downturns because unemployment is down. So people still have jobs in order to pay for homes. So I just say all that to say that I don't know that I would switch markets, because at the end of the day, people are needed in every single sector and in industry that we have now. It just means that it might look different. So I would just keep my eyes and ears open of like what a pivot, and if you're interested in this industry still, what a pivot might look like in case that does happen.
Can we also talk about, a lot of things are very different than they were in 2008. There were a lot of bad mortgages being sold to families prior to the 2008 housing crash. And that's why we saw so much foreclosure because, people were getting homes that they just could not afford financially. And they were getting huge mortgages and taking on lots of dicey financial situations because they were so close to the edge. And so when we did see that decline in the economy and jobs were lost and all of that, like, really quickly, tons of people were just way too over mortgaged. And that's why you saw so many foreclosures and short sales and things like that. I feel like this time around, underwriting for mortgages is stricter now because of policies that were put in place after the recession. You've got institutions like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which are, watchdogs for lenders and making sure that they're abiding by those policies. Also, I think we're savvier as consumers. I mean, I'd like to think, you've been listening to Brown Ambition, hopefully we are more financially prepared. And because of the pandemic and those stimulus checks, if you've been stacking your coins and saving and investing, you're more resilient if that were to happen. So maybe you're not as quickly to lose your house. So it's not exactly the same as 2008. I will say that. And so also, there's programs in place. So if you're struggling to buy your home, contact your lender, see what kind of hardship, programs they may have, and just ask for help, before you get to that point. That's what I'll add there.
Do you have any closing thoughts, Mandra?
Listen,
yes.
I am the career queen. I think that the career is the root of all of our, our wealth building and all of that. So for me, it's all about professional resilience, whether you are worried about the job that you have now or thinking about the job that you want in the future and what this could mean for you, just bring it back to what you can actually control. And how are you building professional resilience so that you can weather any storm? Not this recession, but the next one, because there's sure always going to be another one. So are you expanding your professional brand? Are you letting people know about all the excellent work that you're doing? Are you looking for opportunities for professional development to invest in new skills that are in demand for your field? Are you, like Tiffany always says, illustrating your Oprah so that you're not someone's best kept secret, that they're actually, aware of all the excellent work that you're doing? I have got lots and lots of resources on this and how to, build professional resilience. You can check me out. Follow me at Mandi Money for all career advice. But that's my key takeaway is professional resilience. It will make you feel much more in control during times like this when a lot of stuff is really out of our control at the end of the day.
And my final words are just just really think about hunkering down, not getting into brand new debt right now, unless it's absolutely necessary. Really trying to bulk up on that savings so you can have a little cushion just in case. But also bulk up on savings so you can lean into investing. Get you them jeans on sale, get these assets on sale. And honestly, remember people first, right? So check in on your people. I know this is not super money-ish advice, but sometimes people are struggling and they're not saying. And so, you're not alone in this. Check in on your people, have regular conversations. You want to make sure that if we do hit really bad economic times that, people know that they can, the people you love and care about know that you are checking in on them. They can lean on you. You can offer support. They can offer you support. And continue to listen to Brown Ambition. Oh, you know what? Since we're doing, and sidebar, hello, this is literally the recession book right here. Get good with money. Okay. If you're listening and you're a listener instead of watcher, I'm holding up the book. Okay. No, but for real, I wrote it for times like this. It is to build times like this. You need a strong financial foundation. And that is what Get Good with Money is all about. That is what financial wholeness, that's the 10 steps that I wrote about in the book, is all about. You can get you a copy at getgoodwithmoney.com. And we love y'all. We love seeing y'all or hearing from y'all every Wednesday, every Friday. Just continue to listen and tell your friends about us because it's cute over here.
Thank you, BA fam. We love y'all.
Bye.
Should we do more of these? That was fun.
That was fun.